everybody. Dr. Dan Miller here, Historical Solutions LLC. This is episode 32. That's my old high school football number. Episode 32 of On the 250 River with Dr. Dan. Top 5 from 250 years ago. This day, this week, running up to June 14th, June 15th, 1775. We're looking at real people, real stories, real life from 250 years ago to help inform and enrich us as to what the American founding genuinely is and why we need to embrace it. So, thanks for being here. A little different podcast today. We will forego our 99% factual, 1% fictional sponsor for this week because I don't want to run over long. We're also going to forego our top 5. So the graphics department gets the week off. So the graphics today will simply really consist of this 2, 3, 4, 5. Right there's our graphics. So I hope the graphics department, which is me, enjoys the time away. Let's not even get into the psychology of what I just said. So why are we doing it today? Oh, I do want to mention one thing. I really encourage you, though, to go to the website historicalsolutions.com and look at this week's full entry for today's stories. I think you'll find them quite compelling and memorable, and they're going to run from Moses to Mary and kind of everything in between. And I'm very proud of them. So take a look at those stories from 250 years ago up to June 14, 15, 1775. But today we're doing something a little different. As I said, we're going to do basically one entire thing. That's all top 5. From 5 through 1. It's all one big important thing. So today we're going to be looking at the 250th of the U.S. Army. The U.S. Army's 250th birthday, celebration of that event 250 years ago. That's included in today's Americanism Redux entry that I'm encouraging you to go read on the website. And again, that's historicalsolutions.com, Americanism Redux. So there are two things that are true, and I want to help you address both. Now, the first one. No, before I begin the first one, let me say something. I have 6, a kind of a super 6 points I'd like you to remember about the 250th birthday of the U.S. Army. We'll get to those momentarily, but we'll go to those through these two things that I want to talk about first. The first one is a reality of all birthdays, and it's true for 250, it's true for 50, it's true for 25, it's true for 5 down to 1. And that is, when you celebrate a birthday, you really don't celebrate that exact day, whatever many years ago. I mean, you kind of do. I'll be 64 in November, so I'm not going to celebrate November 15th, 1961, and that specific day only. There'll be a couple of stories about what was going on then, what I was like or not like on that day or the next couple of days or whatever as a newborn. That's true for all of us, right? What we actually celebrate is kind of the sweep and the scope of things that goes all the way up to the present moment. So when we celebrate 250 years of the U.S. Army, as you've seen this past weekend, a lot of it will pertain to things well beyond 250 years ago. We touch on it, but then we sweep forward, and we saw examples of Civil War and World War I, II, Korea, Vietnam, all the way down to the Gulf Wars and so forth. So it's sweeping the entire thing. The same thing will be true for the 250 of the nation itself next year in July of 2026. There'll be references of the American story all the way from 1776 down to now that are presented for good or for ill, for positive or for negative. I don't think we do that so much necessarily with our own birthdays, but my point I think you see, which is that when you celebrate a birthday, you're actually celebrating almost kind of everything in between now and when the birthday actually happened. I go back on my 250 stuff, right? I tell you stories from that day or from that week, because otherwise I feel like they're going to get lost or never known or misknown. And I believe we need those stories to help, as I said, enrich and inform and kind of undergird what ought to be a healthy, strong, and resilient knowledge and a certain kind of wisdom that comes out of that knowledge about the founding and what it means down to now, 250 years later. So I just go back to those stories. I don't sweep all the way up and back and back and up between now and then. We stick with then. So that's point one. Point two. Now I want to issue a warning. Let's call this Dan as castor oil. So we're going to issue a retch warning. I'm going to make everybody retch, but we're going to do it in two different groups, two different halves of the groups of the whole, we'll say, right? So everybody's going to retch at one time or another. So if you're retching early, take comfort that there are going to be those who will retch late. If you retch late, realize there are those who are retching ahead of you early. So we all take comfort in equal opportunity retching. With my second point, and this really drives why I'm having this conversation with you right now. The past weekend we had the 250th celebration of the U.S. Army's birthday, and it took us straight into one fact, and that is POTUS 47. Donald J. Trump, the current occupant of the White House, POTUS 47. There's people who love him, there's people who hate him. In either instance, it affects their sense of the 250th anniversary of the birth of the U.S. Army. So we had the parades, we had the celebrations, we had the imagery of Washington, D.C., or wherever it was, and the various marchings and of soldiers and so forth, the various rumblings of equipment and roars of flying aircraft and everything in between. And we've had a lot of commentary about that, from the direction of I loved it, from the direction of I hated it. So let's do this in full opportunity retching. So for those of you who loved it, I ask you to remember this respectfully. Take a moment and try to realize the right things to love about the celebration of the 250th anniversary of the Army. I want you to take a moment and sort through what are the healthy things to love about this unique moment in the life of the American Army. So it's not in a full-throated display of based in your love of POTUS 47. So you're retching now, I understand. Let's turn to my friends on the other side. Get ready to retch. For those of you who hate Donald Trump, for those of you who hate everything about this past weekend, we saw counter rallies, no kings, and so on. I urge you, take a moment and set aside. You can go back to it, but set aside your hatred of POTUS 47 and realize the positive, healthy, tremendously blessed things about the creation and the birth 250 years ago of the American Army that resound down to now. So everybody's retching now because I've offended everybody from some possible direction. All I want you to do is set aside your love of the man. I want to set aside your hatred of the man, and I want you to focus on 250 years ago and the moment when what we now call the American Army, the U.S. Army, comes into being, comes into existence. And this takes us to our Super 6. I'd like you to think about these 6 things. Go back to your loving of POTUS 47. Go back to your hating of POTUS 47. But before you do that, stand with me on the Super 6 of this moment 250 years ago. Number 1, let's remember that this is a birth and an adoption at the same time. The Second Continental Congress creates a handful of units that become the Continental Army, embody the Continental Army. Those are rifle units. So there's your birth, but at the same time, the adoption is of these thousands of men carrying muskets and pistols and swords and hatchets that are arrayed in a semicircle surrounding Boston, a few hundred miles north. So it's birth and adoption together that makes this new thing called the Continental Army, because it was established by the Second Continental Congress. That's number one. Number two, the Continental Congress has a number because there was a first. There was a first Continental Congress. They all are all are expressions of the Union, capital U. It's the Union first. The Union comes before the Army. The Union comes before the fighting. The Union comes before the extensive bloodshed and the things called colonels and captains and generals and everybody else. It's the Union first that starts in 1774, and you even see some little bitty expressions of it in 73, but primarily 74. Union first. So that's the second point. The Union are the parents. Did I mess up my verb tense? I don't know. I don't care. It's the right verb tense. The Union are the parents. Number three, from our Super 6. It's all started from the ground up. The Army is created from the ground up, even though it's the Continental Congress who's saying we now establish, we vote to establish. The Continental Congress is doing it because they were asked to do it by the Massachusetts Provincial Assembly. So from the ground up, from the lower up, from the people's level up, is where the Army truly has its creation, both in the form of created units like the rifle companies I mentioned, or in adopted units like the thousands of guys already surrounding Boston. It starts the ground up. The Union's the same way, just so you know. Number four, they're defenders first. They're not attackers. They're defenders first. And they're defending things like their liberties. They're defending things like their privileges. They're defending things like their rights and their freedom. That's what they tell you. Listen to them when they say that. Now we can get into the arguments about, well, not everybody's free, not everybody has the same rights. That's a valid argument. We'll talk about that, and we've talked about that before. But the point is, this is a defending moment. We're defending ourselves. There'll be plenty of times when the other words will start to be appropriate, like attack, attack, attack. But right now, we're defending ourselves. This army is being raised to defend what we have, our rights, our liberties, our privileges, our freedoms. That's our fourth thing. Number 5, there is tremendous risk, tremendous danger, risk being run and danger being courted in this act of mutual birth and adoption all on the same day, in making the Continental Army, which will subsequently be called the U.S. Army. The danger is not only that they might lose, because they might lose. The danger is that they're running a risk. They're courting danger because of an idea about standing armies. Everybody believes it. Everybody believes if you want to squelch freedom, kill liberty, end privileges, then set up a standing army, because we've got umpteen books, umpteen articles and speeches that talk about how that's happened in the past and how it was just tremendously destructive to have a standing army. You don't stay free with the standing army. Sooner or later, somebody's going to try to seize control of it and take all the power. And guess who loses? It's everybody. So there's a tremendous risk in saying, yes, we want this standing army. They know that. We're willing to take this risk because it's what we've been driven to in order to defend what we want, what we think we have, and what we think we deserve as people. There's risk. That's point 5. Point 6 and point final. All of the 5 stand on top, rest on top, hold on top of a basic fundamental belief. And that is, this comes from the ground up. This comes from the Massachusetts Provincial Assembly in their letter of invitation to the Continental Congress. We invite you, will you please take control of this army? The fundamental idea is that there has to be civilian control, civilian supremacy of power over the military. How do we prevent a standing army from doing what they always do, is what they believe. How do we prevent it? We keep it under civilian control. So peel back to the rights and the liberties and the privileges and the freedoms that I mentioned before. Woven through all of those. Civilian control, civilian supremacy over the military, over armed power. This is one of the things we're fighting for. So when the Continental Congress says, yes, we will establish an army through birth and through adoption, we will do both and do all with the idea that the civilian power is the ultimate power over that force. That's your Super 6. So, if you haven't retched yourself off the camera yet and you've stayed with me, I really appreciate it. So thank you. I'm Dr. Dan Miller, Historical Solutions LLC. You've been watching the top 5 for On the 250 River with Dr. Dan for the week leading up to June 14 and 15, 1775. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you next week.